everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful Sunday. It is very hot here in the UK. A little bit too much if I'm being honest. And I am having a nice day. I'm looking forward to my evening later too. I heard a new season of The Umbrella Academy came out. It's a show I like to enjoy. You know, it's rare that you get a show that you're really hyped every time there's a new season. I have one of those waiting for me. It's starting to cool down. So I feel like it's been a pretty good weekend, all things considered. And it's going to get even better. But while I talk about other things, and indeed while we go on a little bit of a building hunt today, because I do have a few tasks I need to get done before I can really work on my big build, which if you're curious is kind of tying into the last thing I built here. So last time I was streaming, I built a big salmon poking out of the ground. You can debate how good of a big salmon it is, but there's a big salmon entrance to my big minecart tunnel, which I thought was a nice improvement, but then it kind of showed just how bad the tunnel as a whole actually looked. Like, this 2x3 tunnel was the minimum I could have dug back in 2015 or whatever it was, but it was the minimum I could have dug. And so I think, looking at it now, I think I'd like it to look a bit more like a tunnel bore, and so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fix it up to look that way, and while we do this, I think it'd be fun to have a bit of a longer form discussion. If you're curious, by the way, Magical Girl MU says, do you ever update your older builds? I don't think that you should update your older builds unless you want to, necessarily. I don't think you should get into a habit of doing it for the sake of it. So this is the shape I want to use for the tunnel. Maybe even an extra block tool, like go 3 blocks tool everywhere, and then have an extra block on the ceiling there, just to make it look like there's actually, like, some shape to the tunnel. It looks like a train tunnel in some way, you know? And so I'm going to be doing this today, mining all of these blocks, and then mining more blocks, and then filling those in, you know, with, I don't know, I was thinking of stone brick, but it's kind of boring, so I was thinking maybe using tough brick, or, you know, I've got some cracked black stone bricks on me. Could be a little bit of a wild ride if I do that, so if I show you what it would look like, and if I replace these blocks with some blackstone, it could look very interesting indeed. I feel like this is what real train tunnels look like, if I was to guess. But yeah, rather than using polished blackstone, I'm thinking this could be a good place to use up some of my tough brick, which I have far too much of. I have chests and chests full of tough, and so why not use some? Anyway, is this stream going to be exactly 77 minutes, says Adam Sony. You better believe it is. It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be the best type. So yeah, I maybe use prismarine since they come from the ocean. I don't know if prismarine is a perfect fit, but it would look pretty cool. But yeah, I'm trying not to just fit for. I feel like it's eventually comes down to a point about like, okay, what resources do we have reasonably so? Also, it's funny, I set the title as we're going to talk about determinism. I feel like I've got the most Minecraft questions I've ever had just on a random live stream today. I had someone asking how I feel about this stream was created by determinism. But I've had someone asking about their spawn area, about strip mining, about automatic farms. Like, people asking the contentious Minecraft questions. And, you know, the interesting thing about my answers to all of those questions is, do you think the answers I'm going to come up with are ones that I'm thinking off on the spot? Or do you think they're answers that have come from deeper somewhere in my brain? That is to say, do you think my answer to are automatic farms good? Is my answer fixed in place, or is it predetermined? You know, it's, I think most people would say, I would like to believe at the very least, I think most people would say that, yeah, actually, that answer is probably predetermined by the series of events that have come before in life. You know, I am coming up with an answer, but that answer is probably going to be the same thing no matter what. You know, your answer might be different based on how you feel about automatic farms, but I've come out and I've said a few times that you know, they're fine. I have no issues with people doing them, but I try to avoid automatic farms in my world because they take some of the gameplay loop out of Minecraft. Building them can be fun, but it often isn't. You know, actually, I say can be fun. I'm trying to think about the last time I had fun building an automatic farm. Also, did Cat somehow become even more British? It's true, yeah, I thought the flag fell out of my chair, and then, so I put it back in, and then I realized it was a different British flag, and now I'm starting to question how many British flags I have lying around my office. Anyway, so, you know, the struggle at some point you're gonna get into, right? The struggle at the bottom of everything else is trying to work out, do things happen randomly because the only way that something like free will can exist is if there's some amount of randomness in the world, or if everything is kind of predeterminable. Also, why do I have yellow terracotta? Where could I have possibly gotten yellow terracotta from? Did I bring it for the big salmon and just forget to put it back? What a silly thing. So we're gonna put this back in there, and then we're gonna go get some wheat, because that's an important part of making my metro system work. And if you don't understand why, it'll make sense later. So yeah, I want to talk about determinism versus free will. There are two ways in which you can view the world, right? There are two ways in which you can view everything that happens, and that is that you can view every individual human as having full agency over themselves. This is something which it gets really interesting in certain religious circles, I find, because like the only way in which religion as a whole can work is if you have free will, if you have agency to make your own decisions. If you are not making your own decisions, if all of your decisions have been predetermined for you, then you can't ever do something wrong or right. If the moment you were put here by some greater power, it was a known quantity that you were going to do something heinous and awful, then, and there was no way for you to avoid it, then it doesn't work as a whole. I think that's an interesting place to go with this too. But I think the much more interesting debate is the one around... I think the much more interesting part of free will as a debate is... Because this is something I've been thinking about a lot recently, particularly. I've turned 29, if you'll believe it. I'm basically an old person, really. Soon I'll be getting a seniors discount and all these things. But no, there's some things that happen as you age. Is you are the same person. I am the same set of neurons, and I have the same disposition or whatever. I have the same Minecraft world and the same character, and all these things are the same about me. I have the same opinions on automatic farms, more or less. I have the same goals in my Minecraft world. But at the same time, it's not actually the same. It feels the same. It's the same as it was yesterday, as the day before, as the day before. But actually, every single day, you're changing very slightly. And so, the nature of my consciousness is that it has slowly been changing. And somewhere in there, while I wasn't looking, I went from being like a teenager making Minecraft videos to being someone who has been doing this as a, effectively a career path. I made videos previously, and I am making videos now, and it is 29's honestly so young. Thank you, Dasha. I appreciate what you're saying there. But I do think there is this like scary-ish, at least, root underneath all of that, which is like you are changing very slightly every time, and you're not kind of realizing it. You think you are the same person, and yet you are not. And that is the way I think free will actually works. By the way, if I use a fortune tool, I have fortune on the hoe. If I have a fortune tool, I get so many more seeds. I don't want so many more seeds, but we're just gonna do it because you meant to do it. It's gonna be great. So yeah, I'm in the middle of building a creeper farm. I'm enjoying the process. Yeah, and so in that case, right, it's like, well, you'd be silly not to build an automatic farm, right? There's a few debates where it's kind of just down to what is your opinion. Like, it's like if we argue about what's better, KFC or McDonald's, and it's like, well, what do you want from your experience? I feel like McDonald's is much more consistent and has weirdly better fried chicken, but I feel like chicken burgers are much better at KFC. You can have this debate, and it's like, well, it depends what you want more than anything else. Which is kind of the weird thing, to go back to aging for a second. I feel like that's the thing I'm really starting to realize as I get older, is that people are just so bad, like, a lot of the big debates we have in the world are actually just giant miscommunications, We think we have diametrically opposed views, but actually we think basically the same stuff. We're just asking different questions. I don't know, like, I feel like you can, we get very quick to go to disgust sometimes, but really we should be questioning, like, oh yeah, but why is it that people do have that opinion? Anyway, so the interesting thing here is, one of the... Should I be putting seeds in these flowers too? I guess maybe seeds in these around areas too. I feel like maybe not. I've got enough wheat that I can really focus on the bits that are the main ones here. By the way, I'm trying to get an absurd level of ores in order to make an absurd mansion out of iron/emerald/gold. Yeah, I really liked my, I really enjoyed my ore desert temple. I feel like it's one of the sillier things I made, but also that's kind of what makes it so fun in its own way. Also, Endercore282 says, hello everyone. Hello, Endercore. How's it going? So yeah, so to take a step back here, there are two ways you can view the universe. There's a series of predetermined points. I think it's pretty widely accepted that because, you know, like lots of things that look like they're random on the surface are actually, you know, very well understood. So if you took an iPhone back to the year, you know, 0 AD, if you took a car back to the Stone Age, right? If you showed a caveman a car, he wouldn't understand what makes the car goes forwards. He would hear explosions from the engine. He would see the car going places, and who knows what he would assume. But there is a 0% chance that caveman is ever going to understand, in the slightest, what the heck is going on. And he's, you know, he might assume that it's the fire god. It's the angry, loud god who's making it all work. But I have no space for seeds, by the way. I think at this point, either I put more chests down. I guess I'll put another chest down, or I could start composting. But you know, I'll go for the lazy route now, and we'll do the composting later. So we'll put one more chest down, and now I've got more space for seeds. Look how many seeds I've got. I could have a whole Sunday worth soon. If you show a caveman a car, he'd ask which add-on you installed in his world. So, yeah, in the same way, modern medicine, if you're not a doctor, and even if you are a doctor, right, there's so much in modern medicine that's like, this reduces fevers. Why does it reduce fevers? God if we know. That's a bad example. We do actually know. But you get the point, right? We know certain medicines work well in certain places. They've done... Is this giant, by the way? Chat. Oh, I'm crouching. I was like, is this wheat huge? Like, it looks giant, right? Is it still giant? Chat. Am I accidentally, like, high or something? I feel like the wheat is massive. I feel like it's huge. But I'm probably going crazy. Anyway, so yeah, if you show a caveman a phone, he's gonna assume it's magic. If you show a caveman a car, he might assume it's a god. But that doesn't mean that it is actually a god or a magic, right? If you don't understand something, it doesn't mean it is ununderstandable. You know, you might not understand maths, you might not understand automatic farms, but that doesn't mean an automatic farm in Minecraft is magic. Everyone agrees, like, well, there is a way that spawning mechanics work, and although there are exceptions, here's how it works 99% of the time. It's broadly accepted, at least, as far as I can tell, that is how most things in Minecraft work. There is a way it works most of the time, there's a way it works some other times, but it's broadly the same. The hitbox is taller. Yeah, the hitbox is giant. I think that's why that's part of what it is. Also, yeah, also is religion allowed to be discussed as a background for why we don't don't believe in sociology and philosophical things? I think, okay, this is the thing about religion. I think, so I used to be, at one point, because, you know, I spent a lot of my childhood going to church and just feeling like it was... I feel like a lot of people who have a religious background get deeply anti-religious as a result, you know, of not anymore. They're like, oh, this was a terrible thing. I feel like most of the time you leave something, you end up... It's the same with, like, I don't know, people who grow up with conservative parents end up being deeply anti-conservative because they're like, yeah, that's like my dumb parents are. Not like, you know, it's a thing, right? So, I feel like, I think one of the things that you miss if you just say like, religion is when people believe in the, you know, the things that we can't verify. I think you miss the idea that our whole society is built around ideas from it. But anyway, so there's two ways to view the world. There's the way that is to say, everything has been determined, and that is to say that just like how the caveman looks at the phone, we look at the series of events that happen, and we go, wow, there was no way of knowing that could have happened, but there was of. We just don't have the information to predict it. You know, it's impossible. You know, when you're a 10-year-old, it's impossible to know that if you drink 2 liters of of Fanta or 2 liters of Red Bull, that you're gonna be awake for a very long time. You know, even now, I don't really believe in energy drinks that much, chat. I've since learned that caffeine doesn't keep you awake; it just stops you from sleeping, which sounds like the same thing, but that tiny difference makes a big difference. And so as a result, the world is happening perfectly because a series of events are happening. And you might, I'm not saying like, oh, everything can be understood if you understand the world and the people in it. But if you could understand every single atom in the universe, or whatever minimum level of unit you want to use, if you understood where every single atom in the universe was, you'd be able to, and you understood the force it was at, you'd be able to predict where they're going next, and then where they're going next, and then therefore everything that happens from there. At some point in physics, everything does become predictable, and based on that, therefore, even though we don't understand why, everything that has ever happened in your life, and everything that ever will happen in your life, has happened by very predictable means. There is a way to work it out. It just requires more information than any of us ever have. Reminds me of Final Destination, all the small aspects and coincidences that make your life pan out the way it does. Yeah, I feel like that's it's a good movie for like bringing that out of people. There's this idea of like, yeah, you weren't meant to do this. The universe wants it one way, and the universe is gonna get its blood. Kind of sees death as like a force rather than a. It's a thing we've always done as humans, to being like, yeah, death is actively mean. There is a person out there. The fact that death comes for us all, even though we really don't want it to, it's a level of agency we usually only give to humans. So I got myself like this much wheat. That should be pretty decent. I want to take some of it, put it in my sheep farm, some of it, put it in my cow farm, and then some of it, I'm going to make a new sheep farm so I can get a lot of red wool. Because I don't have a decent wool farm, chat. I feel like I could easily set one up now that I've got a lot of wood to make a lot of chests. I've got a lot of wood and I've got a lot of iron. So I could combine the two things together, make a giant wool farm. I guess you don't use a lot of iron for a wool farm. You just make a lot of minecart tracks. Okay, so now we're going to head down here. As you can see, it's going very poorly right now. I think, yeah, very poorly would be a good description. So let's put this in there and see if that works. It does, in fact. This always fills itself up, but that's fine. But we have a ton of bamboo. Let's craft some of this into some chests, because my chest supply is running low, and so I might as well stock up on it. So what does 2 stacks of wood get you chest-wise? 16. So we'll go for another 2 stacks. Let's just go for a full stack of chests, actually. So 1, 2. Double the stacks of chests. And then throw both of these into planks. There we go. And 32 more chests. I now have a stack of chests on me at all time. And you know what? Just to keep things easy, we'll hay bale up some of our hay. Just make a few stacks into it. Just makes life a little bit easier for me. And let's go do this. Okay, so now we're going to pick up some stuff. Also, hi, I've been watching you for years now. Never dropped in live, though, says Rose Proctor. So yeah, here's the question, Rose. Did you appear here because of a decision of your own? Is it something that you could have fully controlled? Or were you always destined to end up here? When we look at the past, things that have already happened, everyone agrees that, yeah, this is the way things happened. Because a lot of people take the idea of determinism as a reduction of free will. A lot of people say that if you believe in a world where things are guaranteed to happen the way they're guaranteed to happen, that you're effectively robbing yourself of free will. If I stab someone to death and then say, it was always going to happen, man, it's not going to get me out of consequences. The biggest one probably being prison, right? I mean, we're in the UK, maybe like a suspended sentence or, something like that. But, in a healthy country, you probably go to prison for stabbing someone, or hopefully even a mental hospital. One of the two places, definitely you would hope that you end up in. I would hope that you end up in, at least. And so, also, Rakdos says, I'm going to put my inventory out here. Could you make a mob that carries a double chest worth of stuff? They should make the mule able to carry more chest slots than the horse. I mean, than the donkey. Or maybe the donkey more than the mule. No, the mule more than the donkey. You should want a mule more than you want a donkey, as well as wanting a mule more than you want a horse. Or at least maybe equal amounts. Anyway, the interesting thing is, a lot of people feel robbed of their free will if you say to them, hey, dude, thank you, Jessup Kane. Message has been so important, I've been using it. Spent over 2 weeks trying to figure out what to put here. Wouldn't want to waste it. You know, thank you, Jessup Kane. I'm glad you didn't waste it. But yeah, so if you believe in free will, then anything bad you do is not your fault. Anything bad you do is your fault. And some people take that as like, yeah, if you're a determinist, you're just saying you're not responsible for your actions. But it's like, no, you're fully responsible. You have full free will about what to do. Just because the answer is predetermined, it doesn't mean that it's not your decision. And I think that's a much harder thing to wrap your head around. But the way I would, like, think about it is say, okay, look into the past, right? Do I have tough bricks in here? I do. Okay, now we can take the tough bricks. We can make this work. If you look into your past, the past of you specifically, dear viewer, if you imagine that past, and you really try to think about it, you would say that everything that has happened, right? It is guaranteed the way that the past has happened. You have been watching this live stream for the last 5 minutes. You could have chosen to click off anytime you wanted to, and you didn't. That's not to say you don't have the choice of clicking off. That would be insane. Actually, you know what? You don't. This is an e-mugging. You better keep watching the stream, or I'll shoot you in the heart. You know. Actually, you know, if this is an e-mugging, I better ask for more than just your attention. Give me your money, or I'll shoot. I will. I've got a gun. You know I do. You know, in the UK, you are allowed weapons, contrary to what Americans on the internet think. Anyway, so my friend reverse mugged me the other day. The worst. So yeah, if you look at the past, right, you have full free will in the past, and yet the outcome is predetermined. It is predetermined that you chose to stay here, even though you had the choice of doing so. And that is to say, your free will is just one of the factors that makes the future determinable. If you, you know, it's a weird thing to say, right? But if you looked at your future and you thought, oh yeah, this isn't good enough, then you would change. You know, this is the funny thing about, like, if you imagine the Scrooge of Christmas Past or whatever. You know, he saw into his own future, right? He some ghosts came around and they did some weird things. I'm not a big Charles Dickens reader. I know that he was very popular in the United States. But yeah, so like, if you imagine, if we use this fairy tale scenario to build our reality out of, so this is what it would look like if we, let's do a small section of the tunnel, just to see if this looks any good before committing to this actually. That's probably a smart idea that I should have started with. So let's remove all of these blocks and replace them with tough bricks. And then we'll remove some more blocks and we'll see where it takes us. Okay, so build all the way over here. If it looks bad, then we'll just have a small section that has a little tunnel in it, made out of tough bricks. You know, sometimes that's how it is. So, determinism exists mentally. If you raised this way with these genes, you're going to have a certain mindset. Free will exists as a physical state. You choose to do it based on thought, IMO. So do you believe that do you believe in the opposite of determinism? Do you believe that your options are entirely free to you? I do think, though, that your actual choice. Also, what are you talking about? I'm not here, says Endicor. I'm talking about the idea. It's one I've been thinking about quite a bit recently, because so I've been on YouTube for a while now. It kind of hit me recently. I was talking to KMB recently. You know, he's a writer for the channel, and we were talking about, like, you know, fun things for the future. And one of those things was some Mojang employees quit the company. Like, some of the most pivotal Mojang employees have long since quit. Everyone thinks about Notch. But also, you know, there's people like Tommaso, one of the most influential Minecraft Pocket Edition developers. He doesn't work for the game anymore. And so, it got me kind of interested to talk about, you know, to think about these people that, like, you know, on the one hand, it seems like a bummer, but actually, normal companies have these turnovers. Hey, Diluted Dante, everybody and their mums packing around here, says Diluted Dante. Thank you very much. Also, for me, determinism leads to despair, and if I despair, all is lost. But that's what I'm saying, right? It doesn't dispel your own individual free will. It just says that your free will is going to decide a certain way. But that can be taken the other way to say you are going to be okay. You know, you getting out of this is a locked-in event. You being fine, you being okay, you making it through whatever you're going through right now, it's going to happen. And I think a lot of people, that helps them make peace of it. There's especially if you have some level of anxiety, disorder in you. I'm sure when something bad happens, you will convince yourself this is the worst thing to ever happen to anyone. Have you ever, like, one of the, like, worst things that I feel like a lot of people do to themselves is when something bad happens, they go, why do bad things always happen to me? Like you have a big breakdown about why does the world hate me? Specifically me. I feel like this many bad things don't happen to other people. But if you see it as like, yeah, this bad thing is locked in, but I am going to get out of this. Me getting out of this is non-negotiable. It's going to happen. We already know. And that can really help you through that. I think in general, it's probably good to know more about what it is that actually makes you feel the ways that you do about things, right? I think for most people, it is your own brain is a mystery to even you, and that should be more surprising. But it kind of makes sense that you live with yourself all the time, and so you just assume you work a certain way, but you never really test it. You know, it's the same as what I was saying earlier. I'll be okay because I'll go to the ends of the earth to survive and thrive. See, exactly, Dasher. You will. That is locked in. That no matter what you try to do, you're not going to thrive. You're gonna be great. That is an equal way that you can see it. I think some people use the idea that the world is predetermined to doom themselves out, but you can easily do the reverse. You can say everything is gonna be fine. And honestly, when you go through real rough patches in life, sometimes you're in moments where you're like, no one gets through this. This is just it. Sometimes you get to the point where you're like, this is just it. I am going to die. You know, like it can get really, really, really dramatic, I would say, in some places. But when you get into those situations, even, it's like most people who think that eventually make it out. Most people who have felt like they're gonna die haven't died. Some of them probably have, but most people don't. Also, what do you think about this tunnel, chat? So, Kat, what do you think about libertarian free will in regard to this topic? So, yeah, I'm not gonna... I don't know specifically what you're talking about, but just to... Very briefly, there's an interesting argument about how this affects your view of how much we should care for each other, too. If you wanted to be cynical, you could be like, oh, yeah, well, Dash is gonna be okay, so I don't need to help her, right? It is already guaranteed that she's going to be fine, and so why would I need to help Dasher out, as an example, right? She's doing great right now. I believe so, anyway. And so, yeah, if you really wanted to dive, if you wanted to be cynical, you could think about it that way. But also you go the rest and say, okay, some people are just not going to be fine. There's no cosmic way which they're going to be okay. So isn't the least we can do help people out? The very underpinning of the libertarian worldview, the individualistic mindset, is that we all have within us the capability for change. And I do have to say that it's weird, because even as someone who believes that basically everything is probably more or less predetermined, right? Even though I believe in that to some large extent, I still think it would be depressing if you internalize that and try to lock it in. I feel like the best thing you can do is to believe that as individuals, we decide as much of our fate as you can. And that's what I'm kind of getting at. That's why I want to talk about it in this video, is because that seems deeply incompatible, but I don't think it is. Also, you like the new blocks, says Femyoz? Hey, good to see you, Femyoz. I remember seeing... I'd always see comments from you after a stream on very old videos. Single-handedly keeping the back catalog alive. Appreciate that. Side note, by the way, I did something fun today. I decided to test something out on YouTube. That I've never, I've always wanted to test this, but I've never had a video where it fit, because, basically, YouTube is filled with all sorts of weird games that you can kind of play, if you want to, but like, you know, do you want to play games on YouTube or do you want to make good content? I spend most of my time thinking about good videos rather than like micro optimizing. But some days I'm just like, you know, I'm working on this anyway. We got some little spare time. Let's see what we come up with. And so, one of my favorite videos I made in this channel, one of the videos that I thought would be most useful to someone who's new to Minecraft, is a guide from zero, from spawning in, to getting Netherite. A lot of people think about going to the Nether, especially going to the end, as being impossible. I love playables and ads, playables on YouTube, says Ad and Sony. Oh, playables are such a weird concept to me. Should we do some YouTube playables for today's stream? You know what? Think about it, chat. It's locked in whether I'm going to play playables or not later. You can't change me. So Chris Food says the idea of libertarian free will is that a conscious agent is capable of making a different choice when presented with the exact same scenario. The problem is, so obviously the reason these are philosophical arguments and not scientific ones is because you can't ever actually prove them. No matter how much it would be nice if you could, there's no way to prove there's no absolute proof that given the same situation you can make different choices. But yeah, you're right. It's an underpinning to an entire worldview that you are able to make choices. And so I think that, like, again, the only way I can square those two circles together, the only way that I can say what we all believe to be true, that we are making our own decisions, the only way you can square that away with the overwhelming science, which is that everything in physics eventually, you get to a degree of randomness, but that randomness is solved when you looked at it, right? Quantum particles get really, really broken and bonkers. If it's a hole of insanity, if you ever try to look into it. But also rest in peace to YouTube CEO Susan Wojcicki. She passed away of lung cancer 2 days ago. Yeah, we always made a joke on this channel about Susan taking, my money to buy fried chicken for herself. So I want to address this actually. It's really sad. It's really, really sad. When I think we often look at CEOs as figureheads, and we attribute all of the blame in the world to them. I have so many thoughts about CEOs as a whole that we'll try to skip for now, just to say, I think it really sucks. Susan's like, her son died recently. I think suicide. Going for a really, really rough time, and it sucks that it feels like the bad stuff is just concentrated in some. I know it feels like when it rains, it pours. Sometimes in terms of good stuff, sometimes instead of bad stuff. The world is a cruel and unforgiving place, and I feel like fatalism is where you get locked into like things being bad. That'd be the bad version of determinism, is to be like, oh yeah, everything's going to end anyway, so what's the point? I've said this before, but I feel like I'm the only person I've ever spoken to that is a full believer in the idea of like, knowing that eventually it all ends anyway is like one of the things that got me through some of my hardest times as a teenager. Like being a depressed 14-year-old, I was like, you know what? If I just do nothing for long enough, eventually the world comes and gets you anyway. You can try and outrun death as long as you like, but it's gonna come and get you. And so if you ever really feel like dying, don't worry. It's eventually it will get you instead. And so I don't know why I'm the only person who finds that comforting. But a lot of people use fatalism as the reverse. They're like, yeah, well, what's the point in doing anything then? What is the point in existing in a world when you know it's going to be like that? Also, cancer is sad no matter who gets it. They say it comes in threes. Yeah, it's weird. I think there's a real human psychology of like not wanting to be the first person to have some bad news, maybe, and then it drops in there. Or maybe it's like when you're, like I said, I kind of learned this from being around, my mother would come home late, be very, maybe some days be great, sometimes be very upset with the world. That whole why does this always happen to me? It's something I think about a lot. Like why is this something one can believe at all? But then also specifically in this situation, why is it something that one does believe Also, I think we're gonna remove some extra stone just to get rid of these 10 tough bricks. So I'll just put the 10 tough bricks. Actually, we'll just put them over here because there's already gonna have to fill this in anyway. Let's fill in some gaps with the tough bricks. Yeah, it's gonna look very confusing for a little bit. But it all makes sense eventually, probably. Anyway, it's weird as I did lose 3 family members within 4 months last year. I'm very sorry to hear that, by the way. Cat, but I think there's this real thing of like when you're expecting something to be bad. I know things can be much worse and much better based on how you're receiving them. When you get really bad news, everything else seems a little bit worse for a little bit afterwards. Because I don't know, it's a bit of a trick that your brain is playing on you. It's one I'm always cautious to try and like self-correct for. Okay, so also I know, right, you can procrastinate on unaliving as long as you want. Honestly, that might be the best campaign to get. I would be a terrible like suicide hotline person, but I feel like that would be the single most convincing argument you can make. Whenever I speak to anyone about something that I know we disagree on, I try to meet that person as close to where they are as I can. I try to understand, or at least show I understand where they're at, because so often you have conversations, again, like I was saying, you just kind of miss each other's points. You're not advancing anything, you're just kind of yelling your opinion. So I try to understand where they're at, and then once I've reached where they are, I can like say, well, here's how I get from you to me, or at least here's how I got from me to you, you know. Bro's been on YouTube for 14 years, says Arian Messi 01. I think, technically speaking, it's 15 years now. I hope he doesn't quit too soon, says Wisetail Fox. So, yeah, again, I feel like we've taken so many breaks from determinism. I feel like you know, I could say that this is my bad, but actually, it was, you know, based on the atoms in the universe, based on the way of the world, I was always going to not do this. If you knew me, chat, you would know this is how it was going to be. And so really, it would be more surprising if I didn't lose my focus entirely and start doing this. So, you know, think about it that way. And at which point, it's very, very good that we're doing this. Okay, so I'm going to destroy the walls first, because I feel like that's the most logical place to start. This wall right here, destroy it all, and then put some torches back down over there. Yes, we won't even bother we won't even bother putting the stuff back up. We'll just put the torches right on the red. Torch on the red, and then keep going. So, I realized that people always have the same kind of bad news. One person has family members dropping left and right. One person keeps having trouble with abusive relationships. Determinism, I guess. That's, you know, that is an interesting thing, right? It's, there's loops, what do we call it? Like, cycles of abuse. But there's cycles of all sorts of things. Like, if you... Why does the one girl keep having an abusive boyfriend? And it's like, well, you know, like, that's how her wired is specifically designed to seek someone out. The reason it's happening to them and not you is because you know what to do. So it's not that it's like, oh yeah, there's some, you know, it's a weird thing about the world in which like you're almost seeking out something at all times. So like, how can I feel purpose in life? It feels like everything I do is meaningless. I do think destroying walls is a natural first start, which is why people don't invite me over for dinner. You know what, Rue? You say that now, but I feel like people love open plan. Maybe they've fallen out of love with it, you know, nowadays. But I feel like people love their open plan, and so you're helping them achieve their dreams by tearing down their walls. But yeah, no, I would love to be able to instant mine stone without a haste beacon. Yeah, the beacon thing is cool, but I guess it's built for mega projects more than anything else. Because there are moments where it's like, yeah, this would be better if I was instant mining. But when you're doing such a long vertical project, you need like a beacon and a minecart or something. Terrible idea. Would love to see it anyway. You'll be given the same lesson over and over again until you repeat it. But I feel like some people specifically don't learn that way. I don't know. I feel like some people have this real, like, you know, if you think about it this way, right? The way in which it seems silly, the way in which you seek affection is also predetermined. Somewhere in your childhood, before you were conscious of the idea of affection, before you had any concept of the idea of love, before you could put any words to it, you saw people around you who you saw did things that you would do if you loved a person. You know, they hug and they hang out a lot, and maybe they do even closer things than that. But those same people who are doing that form of love, you know, those very same human beings. I need to put some blocks away and maybe a shulker box away too. Yeah, I feel like if I put the sponge box away and then my loot box on the ground out here, it will save me a couple of inventory slots. And then I'll go find a space for the wheat, because I need to put it somewhere. Okay, so I'm going to just put this down right here. I'm going to put these away over here. And then we're going to go to the other side of this place by mining our way there, because we have to do it anyway. Yeah, by the way, Polly E, the person, like a mum to me, died last month, and her husband has late-stage dementia and has been admitted to the hospital with pneumonia. See, that's... Do you think death does come to people all in waves? Or is it... I think... The thing I had, at least, this is my conclusion from a sudden death recently, is, like, even though it's, like, unexpected, a part of me also goes, like, actually... I'm really, really, really data-focused to a fault, I think. And so... you know, someone dying at age like 50, let's just say hypothetically, not naming a particular example of, say, a parent of mine or anything. But if someone dies at age 50, it seems like a freak out the blue thing. But at the same time, your odds of dying every year of your life are, you know, like, people think that you have 80 years of life and then, you know, you got like a 50-50 chance of surviving each year past that. And it's like, actually... The first, like, 20 years of your life, your odds of dying are like 1 in 1,000, something like that. Really, really, really unlikely. It's a bad thing. And as you go further up the ladder, it gets more and more likely until it gets to somewhere about 10%. I think it's like 84 is when it's about 10%. And once you get to age, I think it's age 99, maybe it's 100, your odds of dying in a given year are 50-50. You know, the way life works is you don't have a fixed number of years, unless you're a determinist, of course, at which point you have a fixed number of years and you're just waiting till that clock. You know, although if you're a determinist, even then it's like, even if you believe that everything is perfectly locked in, you drinking that alcoholic drink, or, you know, you taking that horrific substance is shortening your life, but not actually shortening it. It's leaving it at the same length it's always going to be. Anyway, as someone who's planning to have bad relationships, policy you don't realize they're slightly bad because you feel so normal you don't leave before it gets to the really bad. I think there's definitely, like, again, I feel like it's so easy to, from the outside in, criticize, but that is ignoring that there is some reason for it, right? And I think that comes from the fact that our understanding of love is formed very, very, very early on. And sometimes this is the heartbreaking thing about having children, right? Is having children brings some couples together, but for most individuals, it's a huge source of extra stress. It is a humongous burden that you have to go through together. And, you know, some people are very well adjusted at how they can handle that, and they know exactly what to do to make everything great. And some people are the opposite of well adjusted and are not going to handle it well. And, you know, maybe some of those people, even if they're not abusive necessarily, you know, they get distant, they get, you know, like, they get, you know, emotionally abusive, they get, you know, they like, even just the idea, one of the things I think about a lot is every now and then you meet a couple who, like, got together when they're, like, 14 and clearly have nothing going for each other anymore. But they're like, yep, but we're sticking to it. We started this, and so we're gonna follow this all the way through to the end, you know? And it seems like insanity from the outside in. Thank you, Marut, for becoming the 452nd channel member. Hope you enjoy the new members-only content you now have access to. Congratulations for joining the club. Wait, is congratulations correct? Thank you, Marut. Really appreciate it. The big thing I've been working towards on the channel, one of the... we're going back to my career accidentally here. You know, this is Toy Cat's therapy session and also talking about the way in which things are predetermined. Because, you know, if you think about it that way, I'm kind of arguing that your relationship preferences are locked in outside of your control. But it's not, even though they're non-understandable to you as an individual, you know, it doesn't mean that they are, even though your preferences are non-understandable to you as an individual, it doesn't necessarily mean, even though they're not understandable, it doesn't mean that they are random. It means that they come from somewhere, and it's not just necessarily genetics. Although maybe that's a big thing for some people too. You know, I think a lot about the most common deviance in the world, and it sounds real horrific, right? Like that's the you know, not wanting to do the thing that you want to do is like the least useful thing until you realize, like, well, I mean, that's a lot. There's probably a... Anyway, the thing to say here. Toy Cat's therapy session, while he talks about his career. So, I realized recently, like, a lot of Mojang employees, a lot of really crucial ones to the early game, they do not work for Mojang anymore. And it's kind of tragic, right? It's kind of, it's a little bit sad. It's a really weird thing. But then I realized Mojang's been going on for 15 years now. They just had their 15-year celebration. I needed those sponges, chat. No, I forgot I didn't finish this yet. Okay, you know, I don't need to perfectly finish it. I can make this work without finishing it. It'll be fine. I'll make the floor out of stone and the walls out of glass. And I'll just make sure I come back here enough and it'll be great. Yeah, and then I'll make this wider, because I'm currently making this the same size as the old tunnel. I think I'm going to move these up, and I'll make it look exactly like before, but out of stone. Yeah, because then it'll look like it's just coming out of the cave, which is great. That's what we want, more or less. Okay, so, oh no, not the walls, though. Not the walls, specifically not the walls. We're going to deal with those later. Okay, so, I think one of the weird things about that is, the conclusion I kind of had was like, yeah, actually, Mojang's been going for 15 years, and most people do switch jobs multiple times in their careers. It would be weirder, almost, if Mojang didn't have old-time employees that had left the company yet. To me, if I'm being honest, I would assume, and I kind of do assume for some old-time Mojang employees, that even if they do no work in a given day, that they'll still have their job as a legacy of who they are, you know? Like, I'm not saying this is true. I would probably wager it's not. But if you take, like, Dinnerbone, for example, right? He's been out of it with a workplace injury, or a life injury. Anyway, he hasn't been working on gameplay for many years. He did an announcement a little bit ago because of the account migration. But for most of the last while, Dinnerbone has not been responsible for Minecraft decisions. He hasn't been making a thing. And like, what he's actually doing is he's working on something back-end back there, right? But also, do you think that you could have the heart to be the person who fires Dinnerbone? Literally someone who has a name tag in the game named after them, right? I mean, to be fair, though, actually, the Toast, I think, the rabbit, the weird one, the person whose rabbit that was has quit Mojang since, actually. So, yeah, and you know, like, could you actually fire the person who was responsible for making something that is so iconic? Oh, I can't believe this is right here. Very interesting. Let's go up and see what's happening, shall we? I think I might need to make a bunch of minecart chests, specifically just for dealing with this tunnel. Okay, it leads to the outside world after a bunch of coal ore. Microsoft will. But I don't think that's the thing, right? Is usually the PR case for firing an employee is very, very, there's very little to consider. But for some legendary employees, it's like, even if they were doing nothing for the game, their existence is better than, you know, like, let's say, hypothetically, they wanted to fire Jeb. Let's say Jeb, he's not doing any work, he's listening to, you know, he's annoying all the other employees in the break room, and he keeps trying to add alpacas to the game, even though llamas won them up, though, or something like that, right? Let's just say Jeb's doing something that's, you know, it's kind of out there. You know, if even though let's say, for Microsoft to fire him, right? For Mojang to fire Jeb, they would have to make a very big public case about it and convince us, you know, the audience, that he deserves to be fired. Otherwise, there'd be a big backlash about, like, okay, yeah, just fire the person, you know, responsible for your game since you took over. Yeah, that's a really good idea, Mojang. You kind of get me? There's like a certain amount of there's a resistance to certain high-level employees, I guess. So yeah, so it's weird, given that a lot of Mojang employees probably have that protection, the most high-up ones, that they choose to leave. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, you work on Minecraft for a few years, you feel like you've achieved as much as you're going to achieve, and then you move on. There's an interesting, like, if you actually look into it, the people who seem to have left Mojang are the ones who most disagree with it, and the people who join Mojang, the people who, like, you know, I feel like they've accidentally removed all dissenting thought, which is something that may or may not have problems for them in the future. But the bigger point is, also, I'm going to run out of space for this stone, aren't I? I didn't properly consider that there's only so many spaces in this box, and that I have used all the ones I know how to. So I'm going to work on my tough brick for now, just to have a slightly bigger section of this. I think it'll look real nice, and if it doesn't, then it doesn't. Although, let's go grab some iron rails first. Let's get some minecart rails, just to finish up connecting this to that. So, yeah, the truth is there is, like, a length of a career. And that usually is 40... And it's very rare to spend that, 40 years, I'd say? Usually you get out of school at 18 and you work till you're, like, 68. That's 50 years. If you add in some university time in there, it's more like 45. But, you know, most people work some number of years, and then they are done. That is not surprising, hopefully, to anyone want to learn. But it still maybe is interesting. But, okay, I'm going to leave 3 rails in there, and then the other 20 should be good. You know, I'll just take 10 rails. I bet that'll be enough to join up the 2 systems. And I'll take 3 powered rails and 3 levers. That'll be good, hopefully. In fact, let's take 3 redstone blocks. I feel like they're just a prettier block for achieving the exact same thing. Yeah, let's do it. So, yeah, I removed my mother from my life thanks to my husband who helped me move away, who I wouldn't have met if I never worked at Waffle House, which I worked for because my ex made me, who I met through my mum. Ah, see, that's fun, Adam Sony. That's I love that constellation of things happening the way that they did, and that resulting in a good place. I assume so. But yeah, hi to Cat, late but here. I'm sure you understand. I have no idea. I have no idea why I would understand late but being here. So yeah, anyway, so the point is you get 45 years in a career. And I kind of realized, like, man, yeah, this whole time, YouTube's been this, like, goofy thing that I've just been doing. And I've been riding the train for as long as I can be, you know. Sorry, forgive the train metaphor while I'm building an underground tunnel. But the thing I've kind of never really stopped to think about is, like, you know, the goal has always been, like, okay, if I could do this for, you know, like, as long as I can, that'd be great. But how long is as long as I can? Most people who start a job don't think about it that way, as best I can understand. Most people don't think, like, yeah, well, there's a certain number of years, let's see how many we get out of it. Most people have very different thoughts to that, as best I can tell. But yeah, the one you kind of have to be permanently thinking about with YouTube. I think I'm just going to pick up the iron ore. I think it's too valuable not to. Even if I use it just to build a weird house or something, I think it's just, it's one of those things that you've got to use for the sake of using it. And that's what I'm going to do. Fill those blocks in, and then get right back to this. So, yeah, I kind of have been thinking about it, like, oh, yeah, what is the end game? Where's this go? And the answer is you don't get anything. You know, YouTube is not a space where you have any understanding. Like, I don't know what I'll be doing in a year from now. I think I'm in the... One of the things that happens when you do YouTube long enough is, like, unlike in any other career, right, is I've had very good years, and I've had really, really, like, you know, lean years by comparison, I think you could say. It's all by comparison, but it's all been really good compared to, you know, like, the expectations. But, you know, in a normal job, you wouldn't be like, okay, here is your salary. Now we're going to triple your salary. Now we're going to half your salary. Now we're going to times your salary by 5. Now we're going to take your salary, divide it by 8, you know, like, I feel like most of the time you get a raise, and then it's kind of expected that when you get a raise in a job, you get that amount of money until you retire. You get me? Like, if you're earning $100 million a year, you know, let's pick a more realistic number. If you're earning $42,000 a year, and then next year you get a raise, they don't say, but only for this year. You're earning $46,000 this year. If we don't like what you're doing, next year you'll only earn $28,000, right? It's a weird thing. And so, the weird thing about YouTube is how that kind of happens. You can do YouTube forever, but the actual limiting factor is eventually people won't care enough for it to make any financial sense. Or even if you do YouTube forever and everyone does it, if no one watches, what does it matter that you're doing YouTube, right? It's like, you know, it's like you could be a bin collector forever, but if there's no rubbish to pick up, then you're not actually helping anyone. If we solve the garbage problem, which maybe one day we will, then, you know, bin collectors will be very sad, I'm sure. Dasher says, I remember Toycat's heartfelt speech. He said he would be on YouTube for much longer than you'll be watching. And I think about it sometimes, it gives me comfort. Oh, I still believe that to this day. I've been, also, I got a highly sought-after job on my second day. Someone asked me if I planned to be around long, and I said I hope not. And through his disgust, he explained he was one of my bosses. Yeah, same situation with me and a school trip to a theme park. Anyway, yeah, the truth is I agree with what with the comment made previously. I will be here making these videos for much longer than you'll be around to watch them, because that's the actual limiting factor. That's why memberships are extra handy as a concept. That's why all these things are useful. But that's the real limiting factor on YouTube. It's not how long can I make these things for, it's how long can I make these things good enough that people will want to watch them. And that is the real struggle. Every year I feel like we make some really big radical changes. It's a requirement on YouTube. There are people who used to be full-time YouTubers at the same time back at me, and some of those people have gone on to do crazy things. You know, they're like pretty big in their fields. Some of those people, they're surviving off the embers of what they made previously. You know, I know multiple, you know, YouTubers who are like, yeah, we made enough in that 3-year period where we were making, you know, Hunger Games videos every day, that now working is kind of a suggestion. You know, it's a nice thing that I do, but it's not a requirement or anything. Okay, there's a lot more rails required for me to... I definitely underestimated how many rails I'd need here. So we'll just go all the way over that, and then we'll break and put a redstone in the ground here. And then I'll put another one in the ground. Oh, I've already put... Okay, I've got powered rail here, just no redstone block. Throw one next to it. And now I'm so close, chat. I've got to bring like another 60 rails here and I'll be good to go. Okay, so I guess sad thing, I'm going to leave the stream. We'll be back in the next one. I'm sorry for the deep thought, Xavier. Yeah, I think without offense, that sounds like a similar thing. Like emotional instability is it's a really hard thing to actually address. To work that out is real hard. To work out why it is that some things make you feel some ways. And I think that's kind of the caveman of an iPhone thing about your own brain. Is you don't understand why your brain works the way that it does. The first thing you can do is you can accept that you are just human. That's the most important thing. We're not all perfectly built robots. We're humans at some point. Hey, Jack Hassan! Thank you for joining the Big Salmon Club. Welcome. Yeah, welcome. Okay, I'm gonna stop this minecart now. Okay, I'm gonna stop this minecart here. There we go. Just right in the middle, so I can come back to it without too much pain. So did I use up all of my tough bricks? Oh, I did. Okay, I needed to come out this way anyway, though. I was gonna work on someone out there, so let's go over a little bit of a zoom. The tunnel is looking much nicer. It is cool to have these projects like this. I'm doing the long job of healing my pickaxes, says Vicanti. Oh, it's the worst. Totally agree. By the way, Mizcroft Survive says hi, one of the world's best YouTubers ever. I was just saying, Mizcroft, that the I get comments now. I've been having a medium degree of success with short form content, and a lot of people. This is the clever thing about algorithms. They know how to target those short form pieces of content at people who watched me previously. There's always a funny thing. There's like some percent of people who didn't watch me previously who have got it mixed up. Maybe they're like, oh yeah, you're that one British YouTuber I watched. You made the Hunger Games videos, right? Or you made with the world that was really nice, right? The nice world, I think you called it. Like, that's the weird thing is like Minecraft YouTubers been around long enough that people can have wrong opinions. People can have incorrect memories about it, I guess, which is, I think that's hugely fascinating. Maybe you disagree. And so, okay, I'm gonna find a place for all this stone. I don't know what that place should be. There clearly is a logical place to have all this stone go. Maybe underneath this, actually. If I could, like, connect this down to the ground, rather than swimming underneath it, might be better off. Okay, so I'm gonna just place a nice little chest around here somewhere. But yeah, so I think that I think one of the weird things about that. Okay, so look, I've got a bunch of sheep here, chat, and I have a bunch of wheat. What if we could convert one good thing into another? I don't know if there's enough grass in here necessarily, but we'll make sure there is. I'll get some grass in here. While we get some grass in here, in fact. Let's, okay, so get that sheep out of that hole, first of all. And then as soon as he's out, I'll start grassing up some more. Get some sand, then replace the sand with some grass. It'll be great. Okay, so I have to definitely do this before I expand this too much. But here we go. It's going wonderfully. Speaking of going wonderfully, your world is nice, to be fair. Logical, no, but nice, yes. Thank you, Diluted Dente. Thank you for saying I am the YouTuber from 2012 of the nice world. I'm glad you remember it that way. Yeah, okay, so this is my chest. This is where I'll store my garbage. I need to get out of this habit. Just bring a shulker box with me or something. Oh, there's rails in here. There's not enough, but it'll make a small difference. And then I'll put one set of wheat in here. Maybe the 45, so I can breed some more when I need to. And then we'll pick out my shears now. Do I not have shears on me, chat? Why do I keep leaving those shears somewhere else that they shouldn't be? I'll put a bunch of shears in this chest. Maybe just bring some iron with me. Yeah, I'm going to bring far too much iron with me to this side of the world. Because I have too many sheep to not be shearing some of them. Also, I need some grass right here. So I'm gonna pick this block up. Or this for now, I guess. Just put it right there. I want to get as much dirt in here, grass in here as I can. So let's fly over the fence first. It feels to me like you should be able to fly over fences. Oh, I can! How did I just do that? I don't know what I did, or if that was repeatable. But I'm glad I did. Now let's find somewhere to sleep. And then let's just fly all the way home. Sleep over there. It'll be nice. We'll go for a night flight. The cave update guy, says Dasher. It's weird. I feel like that was like the biggest meme in the channel for the longest time. feel like no one remembers it anymore. I am glad though. It's cool. It's weird though. Even then, there's this weird thing of YouTube is the biggest place for you to get imposter syndrome. YouTube is the place where you're most likely, because you need to have some amount of ego to be on YouTube. I didn't think I had any ego until I made a YouTube channel. This gotta say, it's a part of your brain you don't know exists until you have to convince millions of strangers that you're worth watching in some way. But one of the weirdest things, you need a new obsession. Yeah, Cat, you know, weirdly, I do think for business reasons, I've got to pick up a new Minecraft obsession, right? Fake the ego till you make it. That is what I genuinely think you have to do. Like, you have to convince the world that you are someone who you think is worth watching, and that they should think is worth watching too. So Kat, I haven't been back in your channel for a while. You still with your girlfriend? Which girlfriend? Is that the correct answer? I mean, you have the best ego, says Chantal Exley. Thank you. That's the correct answer. IBX to Cat. That's exactly how I feel. I know I have the best ego. So by the way, how's the mustache looking, chat? I've had some people say it's the best looking mustache they've seen recently. And they were definitely telling the truth and not just being nice to me. I had one of those really traumatic childhoods. I've been homeless, and I think that I'm only, when I'm with my family, my own job, because of determinism, 25 years apart equals 25 years of reward. A lot of people would make the reverse argument, Polly. They'd say, oh, yeah, you are destined to have a bad life because you had a bad start. You know, I recently, I had to help. There was a teenager on the street, outside of a restaurant I was dining at, and she was like sitting at like a phone box for a while, and you know, just casually like, it's a dodgy area where, you know, the places that have the good restaurants are the dodgy areas. That's, if you live in a city, you know exactly what I mean with that. And so there was you know, there was this teenage girl, and she was, you know, like 13, 14, 15, something like that. And yeah, someone in my group went over, asked them, like, you know, are you okay? What are you doing out here? This is like a bit of a questionable place to be. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm just waiting for a police officer. They've said they'll send someone, but it's going to take a couple of hours. And so, you know, I offered, like, if you want, we can just take you to the police station instead. You know, it's like, I looked on the map, it's a 20-minute bus ride away. I thought it was really funny, because we're like, okay, yeah. And then they know exactly how to get on a bus without paying, which is, I don't know why I found that to be funny. It's like, of course you do. Like, yeah, I feel like I grew up in a, you know, like a smaller town where, like, you know, you'd be mortified to be caught riding the bus. But, you know, when you live in a big city, I feel like all accountability kind of, like, goes away from you a little bit, as harsh as that seems. Is like, what is the downside of you not paying for a bus? Like, oh, the mayor, you know, the TFL, you know, doesn't get an extra 0.00001% in their budget. It's the same reason people steal from, like, Tesco's, but not from an independently owned store. For some reason, we think it's okay to steal, but only at a certain size. There's some psychology to learn from that, but I'm not going to go into it. Anyway, but one of the things that I think was just continually clear from the way that people have spoken about it since and is that everyone kind of just believes that, like, yeah, if they're in that situation now, it's gonna be like that for a long time for them. Also, it's interesting that I can't put these here because yeah, I can't finish the railway, because if I finish the railway, it's a big problem, huh? Also, I've got all this rail with no stuff connecting it. Oh, terrible. Anyway, yeah, eventually they got to the police station. It sounded like, I could only overhear, but it sounded as though, it did sound, Also, as someone who lives in a small town or city of 13,000 people, I do not get big city stuff. I know 95% of people by face. Then you don't know the thing about going to the dodgy area of town to get the best food. Totally missed up. So yeah, I'm gonna try and ride a minecart down this. I'm gonna see how far it goes. I'm just kind of curious, chat, so I'm gonna do it. I think it'll be fun. Speaking of fun, how does this even happen? How do I even fix this? Do I put water like that? Oh, that is what I do. Yeah, look at me. Fixing problems. I'm gonna leave one of these fences partially undone, just because I think it will look interesting. Yeah, there we go. That's what I want to do. You can waterlog rails. Is that Bedrock only or both Bedrock and Java? As best I know, it's Bedrock only, but what do I know? Actually, a fair amount, I'd like to believe. I only watch your content in summer, since that's when I get really into Minecraft, so I always feel like it's been a long time, even though I've been watching you every year on a schedule. You know, that's one of the things about being a YouTuber, is every year, without fail, for the like, I would say more like twice a year for the last 10 years, I've had the big moment where I'm like, this is just not going to work anymore. If I'm putting my all into this, and if I put my all into this, and this is how well it goes, if, you know, like, if we're declining at, say, you know, 40% of views in a month, you know, it happens. I would say the most common month is, for most creators, is September. But for me, I notice it way more in, like, I notice it way more in the earlier months of the year, something like March. There's just this big period where the only thing that people care about in Minecraft is the snapshots or the previews. And literally every YouTuber, whether they cover news or not, they talk about the newest snapshots and previews or whatever. And so, you know, it used to be like fun videos to make, and now it's like, yeah, this is, you're making the 1000th copy of this on YouTube. Try and say something unique. So, also, I wish I wasn't raised such a goody two-shoes. The law-abiding citizens don't live too well in Russia. Yeah, it sucks having a moral compass, too. It'd be much easier in life if you didn't have one of those. I think about that a lot. Okay, I'm just gonna jump out here now. I should dye some of these sheep red, really, so I get some red wool. Yeah, it's not that hard to re-dye them back, right? Okay, that's a drowned. Let's get him. I like that he didn't fight back. I'm glad that he accepted that fate. He was willing to move right into it. And then I'm going to make a little staircase out of hay bales here. Hay bale here and there and here and there. And then maybe one here and over there. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Silly waste of hay bales? Yes, but it's a good way to store hay, so later me can go and grab those. Replace them with dirt, maybe. So yeah, a lot of people would say like, oh yeah, this person, if they've been on the street at this point, they're just gonna be on the street forever. Like if you're raised in a nice home where there's like a good parent with good meals, you know, like you're gonna believe that's what life is meant to be. But if you're raised in an environment where it's inconsistent and your people fight and you've been taken away from them and you live on the streets for a bit, it's like that's now what you're gonna believe life is. You know, your understanding of what life is partially from all the people around you. Okay, here's what it looks like now, chat. Whee! Whee! Okay, am I going to make it? Oh, yeah, okay. This way around it's working at least. And now I'm in water. I didn't know that you could ride a minecart off rails and be pushed by water. This seems like a useful fact to know, but I don't know when it can possibly be. And then we get on this minecart. And let's go. So there's a little gap here, but I should still be able to get over it, I think. And then whee! And then over the gap. It's fine. Yeah, I made it. And then whee! And then I'll jump in this minecart. And we're good. Life would be so much easier if I didn't know squatting is wrong. Squatting is camping in someone's house to eventually claim rights to ownership. At least in the UK. I don't know where you live, Adam Sony. In the UK... squatting seems like squatting is the most unfair thing, right? But it's so hard to actually squat that I don't have any real ill will against it. It's I don't know, like maybe I guess it's unfair if you believe in ownership rights. Maybe is a crucial component there that I'm missing out to my, you know, how I feel about it sort of level. But yeah, so I Okay, we're gonna remove all of these. Make sure we place the torch over there. And then I think we're gonna move some... We're gonna remove this top block here. Get some tough brick in there before we go. Yeah, people are surprised when I tell them my backstory that I've got to where I have. Yeah, I would say I'm surprised, Polly. I don't know if that's like a polite thing to say. You meant to be like, whoa, no, I could have always believed it. But I feel like that's what I think that's a good. I feel like success stories are the proof that you have the ability to do stuff. I feel like if anything, it's like, yeah, there's two ways you can take a negative event, right? One is to say, well, this negative event happened, so I can't do anything good. It's locked in. Or you can say, I have to do good even more, because I know how bad it gets if I don't. Squatting is just a recognition of the fact. Fixing the legal ownership to reflect the de facto ownership, says Kolcheko. You know, that's a pretty compelling argument on the surface. See, Kolcheko, this is a case where, like, I don't agree with you, but I want to understand your viewpoint. You're saying something that does have some legs, that if you don't allow for squatting, then people are going to still, you know, own things. You know, people are still going to squat, even if you don't legally get rights for it. But if you acknowledge squatting, then you can at least give those people the rights to ownership that they should have. But I would say, the only cases where I feel like squatting is like 100% okay and justified with absolutely no moral complexity whatsoever is like if someone owns some land and then the people that they pass away and their relatives don't know they own it, and then it falls into disrepair and even the government doesn't know who owns it. But otherwise, the point of government is one of the fundamental rights of government is to protect property rights. If you own something, you should be allowed to keep that thing. You pay a lot of money to the government to exist, and one of the very first things that they need to exist for is so that someone can't say, you know, the most unfair situation in the world that happens every day, that could happen every day in a lawless society, like, you know, a post-government world or a pre-government world or like the school system, is someone says, oh, that's a nice thing you have there, but I want it and I'm willing to be more violent than you, so I'm going to keep it. I think that's one of the most unjust situations in the world, and governments exist to say, no, you can't do that, right? But I think at the same time, they also need to say, yeah, you don't have to worry about leaving your house for 10 years to go on a trip around Southeast Asia, because your right to that property, as long as you pay the obligations, which is quite a lot of taxes, will be fun. It's fun imagine people having to physically squat to claim ownership. Yeah, when the mailman comes round, you need to be in the almost prone position. That's for sure. Squatting rights don't apply if you take care of your property or tell someone else to leave, or charge someone to stay there or do literally anything with your property whatsoever. Yeah, but right, hypothetically, Kolcheko, I need to leave the country, and I'm going to I go to Thailand because I learned my mother is sick. You know, I learned my best friend is in Thailand and he's really sick, so I go to see him before he dies. And then when I get to Thailand, I didn't realize, but on the way there, I brought some you know, a small amount of prescription drugs which are legal in my country but aren't legal in Thailand, right? So Thailand sends me to prison for 20 years. In that time, I have no way to maintain my property. But yet, I do not believe that if someone does decide to maintain my property, they should get to own it. You know, if anything, there should be a split of ownership. That, you know, if I'm gone for 100 years, then it's obviously theirs. But if I am just gone in a way that I'm not maintaining it, or, you know, if I expected to be gone for a holiday and actually went away for months, I feel like, and that's not, I'm not saying that's most situations, I'm just saying that's where my viewpoint comes in, is that I think that you should have the right to own the things that you own. Toycat, what do you think of chiefdoms and paramount chiefdoms as a political entity in history? fun part of the time, huh? I lost a home because the guy I made a deal with declared me a squatter. I was trading an acre of farmland for his abandoned hoarded house that I cleaned out. He snatched it from me after I fixed it. Yeah, that's pretty unfair. I'm not a fan of that. I feel like every contract should be in writing, basically for that one reason alone. Is like some people, if you make a real good paper handshake deal, will screw you on it. I'm the most calm about it I can be, but I have a situation like that in my real life, where I had someone 100% agree to something with me, and then immediately go back on it, and I know that they're not even thinking like, yeah, I'm getting this person good. They're just thinking, I cannot deal with this, and I will save paying all of the money that I owe on this obligation. And that's why everything needs to be. That's why, you know, when someone feels like screwing you because they can make some money, there should be a person who protects you from that, and that is what the proof of ownership and property rights are. But, you know, I also feel like it feels unfair on the other side of, like, I signed a contract with someone years ago. You know, I almost signed, chat. One of the worst mistakes I almost made when I first was getting into YouTube. This is like really like saved my channel by deciding at the last minute not to do something. So when I was first getting into YouTube, chat, getting a partnership as a gaming channel was really hard. You needed a company to become a partner, vouch on your behalf, and do it. By the way, thank you, Diludente. You have to occupy a property for 10 years, prove act as owner for that time, and the owner not object when you apply. It basically applies to abandoned property. But that's what I'm saying, is there are lots of situations where you don't know that... you like, I know that they're not that common, but why else would you abandon a property for 10 years? Especially in a world where you know squatting exists. I think that's the actual brutality of it, is no one is just letting their property go to the wayside. There are just properties that are maybe being forgotten about or something, and it feels a little rude in that circumstance. Okay, so I really need to heal up this pickaxe, by the way. So I rent, and I've lived in my property for 11 years. Legally now I could stop paying rent, and I have such good rights that we wouldn't be evicted. So, see, this is another case. So just to clarify, chat, I have never been a landlord. I feel like people immediately... one of the biggest cases where people like get really tribal is like landlords are the most hated group on the planet, right? So we spend a lot of our time working out ways to screw landlords. It's politically popular. It's socially... Oh, chat, hello? Am I here? Say pineapples if I'm here. Something weird happened. So there have been whole streets in the UK that are derelict. Yeah, in those cases, the government sells you those houses for like £1 under the condition that you'll renovate it. Basically, okay, chat, we're all good. Okay, to round out here, I think one of the craziest things to me that it's just accepted, and again, we all hate landlords, so I don't talk loudly about it, is if you rent out one of... so the only two people can end a contract to rent a house in the UK, and I believe in most jurisdictions. When you rent a house, it is not you and the landlord making a deal, although it is you making the price negotiations and whatnot. But the only two people who can end a rental contract are the tenant and the government. And the government, you have to go through the courts. It is a minimum, like, 6-month process. And so, if you, in any other situation in life, where you say you are providing something to someone, if you give them reasonable notice, you can stop providing them that thing. You're, you know, I am selling you all right now. I'm selling you all right now a piece of internet content, right? And I would like to stop streaming in a few minutes to go and watch The Umbrella Academy. And so I will decide to do that. Like right now, if you wanted to try and convince me, chat, if we have a real good discussion about it, and there's a like maybe you could convince me that I shouldn't do that, that would be a poor decision, and that I should actually stay. And I can listen to you, and I will listen to your reasoning. If you think you've got a really good reason that I really shouldn't end the stream right now, then I'd listen. But at the same time, I am not forced to keep streaming if you want me to, right? I'm not forced to continue to supply something when I am done. So, yeah, the problem with the government is they tell tenants to omit rent, stay in the property, and force landlords to take them to court because of the lack of social housing. Yeah, that was where I was about to go, actually, Kat. So, Kat knows this is in the UK, in most councils in Great Britain at least. I don't know about Northern Ireland. But, so... Oh, I really need to switch pickaxe. I can't be using this one. So, yeah, if you are, so the government says that only the tenant and the government can cancel the contract. And so in theory, that's like, yeah, screw the landlords, get them good. And it sounds like a really good thing. And ignoring the fact that we shouldn't just hate people based on, that there are probably some great landlords out there. I can't imagine what they would do. But but if you had, ignoring that we shouldn't just hate people based on a whole class of thing. Let's just say, yep, well that's good because landlords might be bad people otherwise. It's like, but the actual knock-on effect is not, oh yeah, and then all problems of landlords go away forever. What it actually causes is now landlords are so cautious about who they rent to. Because there are people who will serially, as a way to get free housing and save a bunch of money to do all the other things they want to do in life, you move into a place, you pay rent for a few months, and then you stop paying rent. It takes 6 months for you to leave, and so the landlords have to be cautious about those people, and so they'll be really mean to some groups of people. Even though they're legally not allowed to say that you can't have benefits, they will have that written in there anyway. Lands will be real rude about pets, or real rude about basically anything that makes you feel like you're someone who might not leave in a thing, right? And then even worse than that is, tenants can decide to leave at any time. If the landlord really wants them gone and they're refusing to, you basically have to make a new agreement and say, we will pay you X amount of money if you leave the property.
Hey Toy Cat, how are you doing today? Waving hand. Please keep streaming as I just got here. Folded hands.
See,
Also,
Sophie
Welsh.
Hawkins is making an argument, and I can choose to listen and continue to do this. So we forget landlords have bills to pay. Yeah, if you picture a landlord as being like a billion, like if you picture them as having so much money it doesn't even matter whether you pay your rent, then them asking you for rent feels rude. That's not how that works at all. But it's how it feels emotionally, right? But how it actually is, it's like, yeah, these are people who, probably unfairly over-leveraged themselves getting a property that they probably shouldn't have because someone told them that rental properties is how you make a bunch of money with no effort required whatsoever. And so they started doing this thing here. But they've got a mortgage to pay every month, and they use your rent to pay that mortgage. And you might say, oh, that they're getting paid from my rent, and it's like, yeah, you are an investment to them, but also they only earn money because the property is they're only earning money because the property is going up in price. They're not earning money because of some other thing. It's just anyway. My point here is to say, is that what's up in your life, by the way? Oh, it's so funny. I that's definitely it's definitely one of those like spam ad things. Anyway, so the thing I wanted to come into here. Wow, sounds like a bad business idea. So yeah. I'm never someone who would want to like become a I feel like it's like, would you like to make less money than investing passively and have clients who despise your guts? But my point there is to say is, even if you have people who want to leave, the government says that the only way they will give them social housing is if they are made homeless, that is forced out by the courts, which means those people will say to you, I'm so sorry, I don't have the money to give you rent, but at the exact same time, I have to stay here because the only way that I am going to leave in a way that is not going to leave me homeless is if I do this. And that's a bad situation for everyone involved. Imagine if I legally had to keep streaming just because one person in chat said so, right? I would be begging, I'd be praying, like, please, let me stop streaming. I'd have to fake my internet going out. I'd only stream for members only, and I'd say, like, before we get in here, please agree that you're not going to force me to stream even when I'm tired and dying, right? Anyway, with that said, Dash has done the exact of it and said, I'm falling asleep, gotta sleep soon. You know, I have to sleep soon too. I'm sorry, Sophie Hawkins. You did just get here, but I think we went over our 77 minutes. I had a fun time today. Hope you had a fun time too. There's a, today's been a bit of a fun one for me. I would never been a landlord in the UK then, says Col Chico. Yeah, I think that's the weird thing though, right? But then, that's the actual incentive system you're setting up, is telling people not to be a landlord works, except that you need some number of them. And right now we clearly have enough, but eventually that could be a problem. Like, I guess it's, like, life is all about incentive systems, as you need to ideally incentivize people to do things you want them to do. Do you want to have landlords? The answer seems like no, but then it's like, but do you want to have everyone have to own a home to be able to live in one? It's like, well, probably not. You need to have some way to live somewhere that isn't that. I would love... You know, one of the things I really wish we had, I don't know how you solve this, but I've heard this is what the YMCA used to be for, you know, the Young Men's Christian Association, is, I've heard the idea used to be that, like, yeah, it was a place that you could get a small apartment in a city while you found a more valuable place. Season 4 is calling your name. It really is. I'm very excited for it. Yeah, I think I would love to see a way... One of the things that sucks most about renting is you feel like the alternative is being homeless. And, you know, probably in reality, that is the closest alternative. It sucks. It does not feel very good. And so what would be a... it would be very nice if there was some cheap alternative where no matter what happened with your... If your landlord asks for too much money, if they're like, it's going to be $1,500 for the next month of rent in this place... It's like, okay, for $300 a month, I can live I can have a bed with a little storage box in a room that is quiet in a giant tower somewhere, and it's not good, but it exists. Whereas, because we deliberately build less housing than the number of people who need houses, even the very bottom of the market is so expensive because people have to live there. The only alternative is living with your parents, which requires having some parents that are great, etc. And the only way that you can have that really cheap place and not have terrible neighbors is if there was like a guaranteed policy that if you're really, really noisy and loud and bad to your neighbors, that they'll kick you out. I don't know. I feel like that's there's a few fundamental problems at the bottom of basically every human need, and it's that we have really nice desires and wants, and we're really bad at knowing how to get those desires and wants. You know, kind of like the determinism in like some people, how they seek relationships, right? If you believe that love has a little bit of passive aggressiveness or actual aggressiveness or even violence in some cases, then you will seek the people out who do those things by accident or on purpose. And as a society, we have really good ideas sometimes, and we accidentally achieve real bad things. My family's lived in a rented house for 17 years. I think it could be normal to live in a rented house forever. Like, it's theoretically a financially smart idea, because you, like, theoretically, right? Because, also, have I filled up my dirt chest? Unexpected. Oh, wow, look at this. I've got too much dirt, chat. I need to use this dirt ASAP. I guess that means that the next time you join me, I'll be placing some dirt in the sugarcane farm. I mean, I've got 3 sugar boxes now. I've got this whole thing ready to pour some water down. All I've been missing is the dirt to make this happen. So yeah, here is my sugarcane farm. It goes all the way down to Y0 as I originally built it. And soon it will go all the way beyond even that. I've got a lot of dirt to place soon. And I guess we'll starting not that far from now. Anyway, with that said, I hope you all enjoyed today's... that's a dirty chest, says Brian Harshman. Hope you all enjoyed today's live stream. If you did, then don't forget to like it, or don't. It's your choice. It's my best pitch. If you enjoy these live streams and want to see more of them, and want to support the channel more broadly, please consider becoming a member. There are about 2 to 3 pieces of members-only content a month now, and the latest one was kind of a behind-the-scenes on how we recorded the Ultimate Guide. So if that sounds interesting to you, then check that out. And if that doesn't sound interesting to you, check it out anyway. You know, what's the worst that can happen? You're gonna get mauled to death by a bear? I think not. So how about just do the thing, make it happen, see if you have a good time. Maybe you will. You don't know, you know. You don't know until you know, you know. So yeah, thank you for watching. Hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye. Wow, thank God that stream is over. Now I can say what I really think about those stream people. You know, what I really believe in my private time, that I am saying now that I have safely turned off this stream, is that I actually really like well-organized chests. I'm tired of pretending that I like them disorganized. Thank God, you know, my inventory is a mess, but it's all a lie. I do it this way for the views. Thank God no one will ever know, though. Oh, I'm glad that... Oh no, I was secretly recording the whole time. Please, chat, never let my secret get out. See you next time. Tricked you, stream wasn't really over. You just thought it was because I stopped talking and because the stream audio went away? Suckers. That last thing I said, that was actually a lie. Okay, I can stop streaming now. Ooh, covered myself there. Hope they thought it was really a lie and that was all actually made up. Oof. Okay, we're